Hi, so in this video we're going to be making a bullet journal for students. The reason why I'm making this video is because every time I looked through bullet journals for students, I really couldn't imagine my 9th grade students doing that much setup ahead of time. So I wanted to go over this video just to talk about how to utilize the Ryder-Carroll method for students. And again, I'm thinking about my 9th graders as I do this. Alrighty, so this journal is going to be very quick to set up, and it's also going to be very inexpensive. So I'm using a composition notebook because they're smaller. They're not bulky in your backpack. They're also very cheap, and they hold together a little bit better than spiral notebooks do. I'm using washi tape. You absolutely don't need to, though. You can use regular tape. Get your favorite pen or pencil, or any pen or pencil, 2 paper clips, and then an index card. The index card is where we're going to actually start right now. So for this index card, we're going to fold over one portion, and that's going to be the portion that gets taped down. The reason why is we're making one of those fold-out keys. For the key, I assigned a set of letters for each class that a student might have. So for example, this hypothetical 9th grade student has biology, algebra, English, so B for biology, A for algebra, E for English, etc. And then they also have a set of letters that are for assignments. So for example, T for test, Q for quiz, P for project, HW for homework, OHW for online homework, and then R for reading. So these are all of the things that will make this bullet journal quick and easy for your student. I see a lot of people and a lot of students use color coding per class, but realistically, for my students in particular, they would have a lot of times where they didn't carry their pencil pouches and things like that. So as long as they have one colored pen, they're able to be consistent in tagging their items for each class. Whereas if you color code everything and you forget your pencil pouch, but blue has to be for biology, then you're in trouble, right? So for this one, using just the letters and a regular pen or pencil really helps to keep you consistent. At the bottom, I also have my signifiers. So for example, an open box for a task, a filled in box for a task that's been completed, a dot for a note, and then a triangle for an assignment that's due. I also added in there that if I see a number that's in a circle, then that signifies a page in this planner that I'm referencing. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started with the setup. Again, this is keeping with the very original bullet journal style. So at the beginning, I've got my index. It's again, simplicity is key here. I've got the page number and then the topic, and I've already got a couple of things filled out in this bullet journal just to show you what it might look like. On the next page is the first page where I actually start the numbering. So at the bottom, I've got page number 1 in a circle, page number 2 in a circle. And on page 1, I've got my monthly layout. So here I've got the imaginary setup for the month of August. If you're familiar with the original bullet journal method, they usually do it in a portrait style. I instead opted for a landscape style for the simple reason I felt like it gave me a little bit more space. After you get your month set up, make sure to put a paper clip up at the top just so you can easily find that month as you go through your journal. One thing that I normally see is people going back to the original square style box calendar. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It is traditional and it's what people are used to. I opted for this way though because it literally takes 3 minutes to set this up. And so every month, if your student only has to spend 3 months doing this, 3 minutes doing this, there's really no excuse for that student not to be setting this up. Whereas if you do the box method, while it is traditional, it does lend itself to, for example, oops, I messed up, or I don't have a ruler, or whatever the excuse might be. So this, no excuses. Before we move on, make sure that you are putting your months in your index. So for example, page 1 was August. Alrighty, on page 2 of the journal is where I start my rapid logging, and that's where your key is really going to come in handy. So let's say, for example, that the day is August 20th. Oops, kind of got to the bottom of my page too. So I've set up some as an example for you. And so let's say, for example, that your student comes into class in the morning, they write down the date, and then what they need to do is they need to write down their assignments as they go through, or as they get assigned them. So let's say, for example, the student is in geography and the teacher tells them that they have a quiz and they have to do a study guide online in order to get ready for that quiz. So they're in geography, so they're going to use the little triangle, which means they have an assignment. They're in geography, so G:, and they know they have a quiz. Let's say, for example, that quiz is going to be on 8/21. and the teacher tells them they have to do a study guide, so I'm going to put a task box study guide. And let's say, for example, the teacher gives them specific instructions on how to actually fill out that study guide. So I would just go ahead and use this space to write down those instructions. Now, what my students were personally missing from using their planners was they would write down when the assignment was due, but they wouldn't necessarily fit in the details. Why? Because they would buy these itty-bitty tiny planners that didn't have enough space. The great thing about the bullet journal is, let's say for example that, yeah, you have a very small day or very limited number of tasks, so you use a small area, or you might have a big list of tasks for that day, and so you need a lot more space. The great thing about the bullet journal is you use however much you need. So now that the student has written down this imaginary task, they've written down the instructions for how to do this task, they need to go ahead and move to their monthly calendar and write that down so they can remember that they actually due at a different day. So 8/21 was the date of this imaginary assignment, and so I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to write G:"Q, and I wrote the instructions for that geography quiz on page 2. So I'm going to put 2 in a circle. Okay, so I've already went ahead and filled that out. So as your students looks down their monthly calendar list, they know, oh, I have a geography quiz and the instructions for it are on page 2. And they can look down page 2, look for that symbol, and boom, geography quiz. As they go through their tasks for that day, they need to make sure that they are filling in that square. So for example, they get home, they do the study guide, they just fill that in. If, let's say for example, a task becomes irrelevant, so a teacher canceled something, they don't have to do it anymore. They can just go to that assignment, for example, and cross it out. They don't have to do it. Alrighty, going back to talking about color coding, if your student, for example, writes something down that's very important, I would suggest putting it in a big box, putting little stars next to it or something like that so they can see it easily. When you are indexing your pages, you don't need to index your dailies, but if you write something on the dailies that you know you're going to have to look back at, so for example, a website that you know you're going to have to use for the rest of the year, I would, again, put it in a box and put some big stars next to it, and then I would index that. So you're not necessarily indexing the dailies, but you're indexing that website. Alrighty, the next thing, let's say for example that your student is involved in extracurricular activities and they get a schedule for that. What they can do is they can tape it down on the next blank page in their journal, and then they can index it so that way it's always with them and they don't have to be like, oh hey, what happened to my game time schedule? Let's say, for example, once they finish this page of dailies, which I am done, I need to turn to the next page to write more dailies. Well, page 3 is already full. That's fine. Go to page 4. It doesn't really matter what page you do this on because it's just turn to the next blank page. If you want to spend an entire page of doodles so you don't do them on your notes, that's fine. Just turn to the next one and take your dailies on the next one after that. Again, consistency with your key will be the biggest thing here. Keep that black pen, that pencil, whatever you need, but just keep up with that key. Alrighty, some tips and suggestions. If you want to use highlighters to make things stand out, that's absolutely fine. I would always keep some sticky notes at the back to make sure that if I need to write a note or something like that, I can. I also make a little pocket at the back of my bullet journal, just some tape here on the bottom, tape on the side, and then pocket right there. So in the meantime, between taping things down or gluing them down, I keep hold of those papers. That's it for the setup. It's really easy, really simple. Just make sure that you're keeping up with that key, making sure you're consistent, and make sure you're actually using your bullet journal at home. You know, the more you use it, the more likely you are to be successful with it. Oh, one last thing, my second paper clip. So as you move through your dailies, you're going to be moving farther and farther away from your monthly calendar. So with that other paper clip, make sure that if you move far away, you just put that on your dailies so you can keep track of it. Alrighty, now I'm officially done. I hope it works for you guys. Remember, your bullet journal is what you make it. It doesn't have to be something crazy and elaborate as long as it works for you. Alrighty, good luck.